Hello, and thank you for watching this Northeast Regional Forecast. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Checking in with the current snow depth across the entire lower 48 and part of Canada, we're continuing to melt the snow across parts of the eastern Corn Belt and across parts of the Great Lakes, but stacking up a little bit of additional snowfall here over the next 24 hours across northern portions of the Northeast region. As we talk about the temperatures over the next 5 and 10 days, keeping a cooler bias across the Northeast region, but there will be warmer days in here. We're moving toward a progressive pattern. And what I mean by that is a wavy jet stream here that is not stuck in one pattern or another. We've been stuck in this pattern with the big ridge in the west, trough in the east. That has kept the eastern half of the country very cold. It's kept record warmth extending northward into parts of Alaska. Getting away from this pattern that's stuck, that leads to storm systems moving from west to east across the country. A progressive pattern that favors warm air advection on the leading edge of each storm system, cold air coming in on the backside. So again, with these storms kind of moving from west to east across the region, that will lead to warmer days in some areas and then colder pushes of air on the backside of each of those. As we look at the precipitation forecast, we can kind of make out each storm system here. This is one that's going to move through parts of the Midwest into the Great Lakes. It will move through part of the Northeast region toward the end of the week. This is Thursday and Friday. And then Friday and Saturday, we've got another quick moving system that's going to sneak through the south into the parts of the Mid-South, bringing some additional precipitation to southern portions of the Northeast region potentially. And then as we move into next week, perhaps heading toward an unsettled pattern that continues to favor the development of one or more major storm systems in the midsection of the country. And the impacts, again, downstream across the Northeast region, not quite understood. We don't quite know if this is going to be one of these intense lows that kind of deepens up around the Great Lakes, or does it go more progressive moving off to the northeast, bringing some of the impacts to the Northeast region. Right now, it looks like this is the favored path here with a deepening low that kind of swings northeastward through the Great Lakes, which kind of acts to minimize the impacts across the Northeast region. But that is something we're going to have to talk about here as we head into next week. Now, the last 24 hours, the active spot has been, or the two active spots have been on the far northwest and the far northeast. I tried to say both of them at the same time there. We have a storm system moving ashore here, bringing some heavy rain to parts of coastal Washington and Oregon. And then we've had a slow-moving coastal low that's brought precipitation mainly to northern areas here, parts of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, getting back into eastern portions of New York. Now, as we animate the satellite picture, we can see that. We can see this big comma shape, this big counterclockwise swirl. That is the area of low pressure off the coast, and here are the bright cloud tops that continue to bring some rain and some snow to parts of the Northeast region. So check in with the radar. Here we see that. We've got some snow falling in the north. We do have some rain continuing to fall across parts of the Northeast, parts of the coast here, maybe some snow falling across northern portions of New York as well, and then a subtle disturbance bringing some light rain to parts of the eastern Corn Belt as we head through the rest of the day. Temperatures across the region below freezing off to the north, lower 40s as you head off to the south, and then across parts of western Pennsylvania, dropping down to around freezing as we wake up early on Tuesday morning as well. Now, we can take a look at the high-resolution NAM model, just taking this out for the next 48 hours and kind of watching this thing get out of here. And it is slow to do so across the north. So if you're across parts of northeastern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maine, it's going to be stubborn. We're going to see the snow and the wintry mix sticking around here for the next 24 hours or so. The first wave kind of starts to nudge out of here. We see things taper off as we get into Tuesday evening, but some moisture here wrapping around on the backside, going to help fire those snow showers back up, maybe a wintry mix across parts of Massachusetts and getting close to the coast here as we head through midday Wednesday into Wednesday evening before we finally see things taper off, precipitation moving off to the east. Now you're noticing off on the left side of the screen, this is the next storm system that swings through the region here, impacting the Midwest on Thursday, moving into parts of the Northeast region here. But again, this one's going to kind of swing off to the north and to the northeast, so the precipitation impact is going to be heaviest off to the north. Now we'll have to deal with some breezy conditions as we just watch this last storm system get out of here, watching for winds gusting anywhere from 20 to 30 miles per hour as we go through the day on Wednesday into the Wednesday night, and then perhaps Thursday as we talk about coastal areas. We're going to have to talk about windy conditions as we get into the weekend as well, and I'll show you that here in just a couple of moments. Taking a look at the total accumulated precipitation forecast then over the next 48 hours, seeing most of that stacking up across eastern New York through Maine. This is going to be our corridor of the most precipitation as we head through the day on Thursday. Looking at the snow accumulation forecast, obviously watching for most of that to stack up here with about 4 inches possible as we go through the rest of the day into Wednesday across eastern New York into western Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Also watching for a swath of 4 to 6 inches of snow here across parts of northern Minnesota, getting into far northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. Now we can take things out just a little bit further. We'll go ahead and look at the GFS model here, which agrees very well with the European model through the end of the week. Watching this stubborn coastal low get out of here Tuesday and Wednesday, bringing some snow to the region here, tapering off by the end of the day on Wednesday. A brief lull on Thursday before this area of low pressure comes screaming in from the Midwest, racing north of the Northeast region here, but bringing some windy conditions and bringing some light rain to northern portions of the Northeast region here overnight Thursday into early Friday morning. Cold air comes in on the backside. That's going to change some of this precipitation over to some snow as this front quickly gets out of here during the day on Friday. So this looks like a Thursday night into Friday blustery day with some light rain showers changing over to light snow as we get to the end of the day on Friday. We then turn our attention to this next area of low pressure that's making its way through the mid-south. This one expected to pass south of the primary Northeast region, but there could be some wintry impacts across the state of Pennsylvania getting into New Jersey on the north edge, where some cold air could wrap around here, bringing maybe some light snow, a light wintry mix during the day on Saturday. Accumulations expected to be minor, if any, across this region here as we just get kind of a glancing blow. Now, as we head into next week, I'm going to kind of tease what we're looking at, this more, progressive pattern, trying to develop areas of low pressure across the Central Plains and then bombing those out across the Midwest. And again, with the favored path perhaps being something with this swinging off to the north and to the northeast across the Great Lakes. We're not quite sure about what the impact would be here in the Northeast, but Thanksgiving week, lots of travel plans, lots going on as we head into next week. I want to give you an early hint that we could be looking at disruptive storm systems somewhere over the eastern half of the country here, from the Central Plains, the Midwest, into potentially the Northeast region as we get close to the Thanksgiving holiday, something to pay attention to with each of our forecasts here as we get a little bit closer. Total accumulated precipitation then from the GFS model. This covers the first storm system here that is slow to get out of here for the day, Tuesday and Wednesday, dropping about half an inch of precipitation here, some of that falling in the form of some snow, with several inches possible from eastern New York into Maine. We then watch the Thursday and Friday system making its way in. Actually, both storm systems. Here's the Thursday-Friday system, and then this is the Friday-Saturday system. You see their precipitation swaths making their way through, and what you also notice is the heaviest precipitation staying north and south of the Northeast region. So feeling the impacts over the weekend with some windy conditions, but perhaps not getting the brunt of the precipitation here as it kind of favors areas back toward the west. As we take a look at the wind gusts then as we head into the weekend, I mentioned we'll have to get through some breezy conditions overnight tonight into the day on Wednesday, seeing a rather pleasant Thursday as things kind of calm down here, winds gusting 10 to 15 miles per hour, nothing that unusual for November in the Northeast. But it's as we head into Friday, getting into the day on Saturday, that this next storm system, the area of low pressure itself tracks north of the Northeast region here, and again taking most of the precipitation with it. But it is the strong southerly winds feeding into it at first, and then the strong northwesterly winds that come in on the backside. They're going to bring some very breezy conditions to the Northeast region here. Almost the entire Northeast region going to be at risk at winds gusting certainly 20 miles per hour, but likely 30 to 40, if not higher. Some gusts 50 to 60 miles per hour certainly going to be possible as we head off to the north. I would say high elevation areas here across New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Those 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts not out of the question as we head into Friday night and Saturday. Now, I mentioned again the possibility of some wintry mixing in here on the north side of this system Friday through Saturday. But now we're looking at the probability here from the GFS ensemble model of 3 inches of snow or more accumulating. You're seeing very low values here, less than 20% chance here. So again, not talking about accumulating snow from this Friday-Saturday storm system across Pennsylvania, but certainly possible we could see some snowflakes flying out there. Your better chance for accumulating snow going to be off to the north from eastern New York through New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, as we look at the potential for several inches of accumulation there. And then you can find the next area of accumulating snow here across the southern prairie of Canada through the northern plains into the upper Midwest, where we could see 4 to 6 inches of snow fall in that region as well. Now we're dealing with a pattern change over the last 2 to 3 weeks, going all the way back to the last weekend of October. The pattern has been dominated by these reinforcing shots of dry air making their way into the central part of the country, shutting down the Gulf of Mexico and kind of keeping moisture from getting too far north. Now, as I just kind of take the drawings off and show you where we're headed over the next week or two, you see we are shifting away from that pattern that keeps us, exclusively dealing with cold Arctic air, getting back to a pattern where we're seeing storm systems develop across the central part of the country, drawing that deep Gulf of Mexico moisture northward. And that does lead to the potential for more impactful, disruptive storm systems across not just the central part of the country, but question marks then as we talk about downstream across the Northeast region. Something we're going to have to analyze closely day by day is the potential for a more significant storm system swinging from the Midwest into the Northeast over the next couple of weeks. And again, it's because of this progressive pattern. Over the last 3 weeks, going back to the last week of October, we've dealt with a stuck pattern, a blocked pattern, where the jet stream was very bunched up, blocked across the Pacific Ocean. We had a big ridge over the Gulf of Alaska, diving into a big trough over the eastern half of the country that kept things very cold over the eastern half of the country, kept things very warm, record-breaking warmth as far north as Anchorage, Alaska, as we talked about the end of October, beginning of November. And what we're getting away from is that stuck pattern. We're getting into a pattern now where if I just play this, you see the waves progressing from left to right. We see some funny business here. That's, again, as we get into the week 2 time frame, a lot of uncertainty with a pattern like this as far as how each little storm system is going to interact, how each wave will interact. But potentially getting to this pattern here next week, trough in the west, ridge in the east, that again favors the area of low pressure across the central U.S., warmer air surging northward then, colder air coming down the backside, but the potential for these progressive storm systems making their way across the country, and that could lead to disruptive weather. It also leads to opportunities for warmth. We're getting away from this pattern that kept the eastern half of the country locked into these deep blue colors, this record-breaking cold, getting to a pattern now where if you just kind of focus in on the Northeast region, you can't pick up on a cold or a warm pattern. And that is, again, because we're dealing with a progressive pattern here with these areas of low pressure, not situated over the Pacific Ocean here, but just kind of to draw it in. Again, with these patterns or with these storm systems moving from left to right, you get days where you tap into the warm air in advance of that approaching storm system, and then days where that storm system moves off to the east, you get the cold air filling in on the backside. So progressive pattern means the potential for storm systems. It means the potential for disruptive precipitation. It means the potential for warm days, and it means the potential for cold days to follow. So it's a pattern that is very typical for November, and one that just requires watching daily forecasts to understand how things are going to evolve. Low certainty with the overall specific local daily impacts, but getting high confidence now that we're heading towards this more disruptive weather pattern. As we just kind of jump ahead, looking at the week 2 precipitation anomaly forecast, again, we start to see this bullseye shaping up over the central U.S. That is because that's where we expect the battle zone to set up here between the warmer air across the southeast, the colder air in the north, and the very strong jet stream winds across the central part of the country. That is where we see the heaviest precipitation. So downstream impacts across the Northeast region, not quite understood, but it's something we're going to have to watch closely as we get closer to the end of the week and next week. Your high temperatures for the day on Tuesday, anywhere from the mid-40s to the low 50s across the south parts of the northeast region here, parts of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Below freezing as you head off to the north. Similar story for the day on Wednesday and Thursday. Friday, we get a little bit warmer across the south. Temperatures near 60 possible in advance of that storm system with colder air coming in on the backside. Your high temperatures on Saturday, once again, very reflective of this same pattern. Below freezing off to the north, 40s to near 50 degrees off to the south. Your low temperatures for the overnight tonight into Wednesday morning then, dropping below freezing for just about everyone except for southern Pennsylvania into New Jersey, and then areas closer to the coast holding on to the mid-30s. Below freezing once again for just probably about everybody on Wednesday night and Thursday morning, but warming up with warm air advection in advance of this late week storm system. Here we see the warmer air in advance, colder air coming in on the backside. The battle zone, the region most favorable for precipitation then following this dividing line. As we head into Friday night and Saturday morning, once again below freezing for just about everyone, except far southeastern Pennsylvania into Jersey, where maybe holding on to 33 or 34. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video. We also will have our long-range U.S. focused weather analysis that will be available tomorrow. And then I will be back to talk about the Northeast region specifically on Friday. Have a wonderful day.